go.
Okay, referencing. We're going to talk about referencing now. Why do we reference? What's the point? Everyone gets very stressed about referencing, but it's really important that we do it. So why?
To acknowledge where you've got the information from.
Absolutely. So we're referencing to acknowledge where we got information from. Why is that? So we're acknowledging the source of information. If we didn't do that, if we didn't acknowledge a source of information, what could we be accused of?
Plagiarism.
So we could, so it's just to avoid plagiarism. Okay. And, you can be legally challenged if you plagiarise. So plagiarism in academic circles is a very serious offence, and we have, in Matrix, we have structures to check plagiarism, and we have sanctions if somebody plagiarises. So sometimes people can plagiarise by mistake, so you don't really know. You're paraphrasing someone's work, and basically you've paraphrased it, it says exactly the same as they said. So we would know if that was kind of unintentional. Very occasionally, 2 years ago, we had this, somebody intentionally plagiarised. And we generally find that, and it's serious academic misconduct. Okay, so it's taken very seriously, so we try to avoid plagiarising at all costs. Okay? So yes, we want to acknowledge somebody else's work. Okay? Why else might we do it?
Be able to pass that information on to others.
Yeah. So that others can find the information. And I think, for me, that's why I like referencing, and I don't get stressed about it. I understand that there are rules around referencing, and I think if you like following rules, then referencing isn't as bad as for people who don't like following rules. But particularly I like referencing because I like reading, and when I read, if I read something interesting that's somebody else's idea, it's immensely frustrating if you don't know where you can go and read that. So if you think about it, what you're always doing is telling the reader, this is where I got this information from, so if you're interested in it too, you can go and read it there, alright? So that's why we're doing it. What else? Anything else?
So you can see where it's got it from the person reading, marking the essay, you can see where we've got it.
Yeah?
It's kind of proof of reading, isn't it?
It is proof of reading.
Proof of knowledge, yeah.
Proof of knowledge. If you think about it, if you're telling us about the theories and referencing them, right, so you're saying, so-and-so says this, and so-and-so says this, right, then when you go, and I think this, it shows your individuality, okay? So if you reference well, then we can see what's yours, yep? So that's quite important. So it shows us your ideas as well, okay? And your ideas and your thinking. So we can see what's yours and what's others. What people can see what's yours and other people's. The other thing is that you're actually, by showing the referencing, is you're showing how you're interacting with others, with ideas, okay? Because of course what you're doing is you're showing us what you've read. You're showing us how you're interacting with other people's ideas. So we're getting a sense of how you believe about, what you believe about others' ideas and how you fit into that as well. So you're saying, these are other people's ideas, I'm acknowledging them, yeah? I'm showing that I know this stuff. I'm pointing you in the right direction if you don't know it. But this is what my thinking is too, yeah? And sometimes, I think it's important to remember this is important that others can find the information, because sometimes you might write something in your essay, we don't know everything, because we haven't read every book there is out there, and sometimes you might say, so-and-so says this, and we'll think, that's really interesting, and quite a lot of the books that I've read more recently are a result of what people write in their essays. And they're saying, this idea is, comes from here, and I'm thinking, I haven't read that book, I'm very interested in that, and I'll go and read it. So it's really important. Referencing is important. It's not just something that you tag on to the end of it's like you write your essay and you think, oh, now I've got to do the reference list. So what we're going to talk about is how you do that. So the first thing to think about when you're referencing is you need to rewind and stop thinking about your essay, and you need to think about your reading. Okay? So referencing starts with reading. So when you're reading a book, you have your post-its. These are my props. Post-its, these or like these, right? You have your post-its and you're reading from the book. And you read, here we are, assessment is an integral part of the counselling process. It has several important aspects. You think, well, that's important because I'm going to be writing about assessment. So I'll pull out one of these, stick it on my book, and what I would do is I would then write assessment. Okay, and then you get to another bit and you might stick another one of these on, yeah? And then you might write something else. And then you get to a bit where you think, oh, that person says that so beautifully, I will never be able to say it like that in my work, because that captures the essence of what I think too, yeah? So then I'd get a different colour, yellow or something, means quote. I would stick it there, I'd put an arrow next to it and I would write quote there, okay? So that when you come to write your essay, so when you're reading, you're already thinking about how you're going to reference, so that it starts right at the very beginning. So that when you come to write your essay, you're thinking, oh, damn it, what did I think about assessment? And you go, here it is, assessment. That's it, I found it and find it straight away. We've all done it, every tutor will have done it, everyone. You read something brilliant, you forget to write it down, and you then spend hours trying to find it. Okay, that is so frustrating, we've all done it. So try not to do that, mark everything you read. Now, if it's a book that you've taken out of the library, you either try and keep it for as long as you can, you know, bring it back, and if no one wants it, take it away again. Keep it for as long as you can, so you have it when you're writing your essay. But if it's a library book and you have to give it back, then what I would probably do is I would photograph the pages. Just be clever, right? Take a photo of that page so that you've got it for when you want to write the bits that you think are important. Or there's a really good app called Scanner that you can scan, and then you can just pop it straight in your Dropbox, or if you can email it to yourself, or whatever you do. Just think of a creative way of capturing the information if you've got to put the book back in the library, all right? The other thing that you do as you are reading is, another thing you can do is you can open up a Word document with good ideas. Just call it good ideas or something. And you can just take notes and put that in there and make reference to the book so that you're always keeping... So you're being smart with your reading, right? And then that's where referencing starts, with your reading, okay? So we've done that. You've written this wonderful essay, or you're starting to write your wonderful essay, and you think, you know, what bits of this essay do I need to reference? So what do we need to reference?
Direct quotes.
Direct quotes. So we reference direct quotes, always reference direct quotes. And what's the other thing that we have to reference? So if we directly quote something out of a book, of course you've got to put a reference because it's someone else's work, and if we don't do it, we'll be accused of plagiarism.
Source? Are we? So if we're on the internet or somewhere else that we say where we found the information, like Times Magazine or whatever.
Absolutely. So we're always putting our sources down. So what we want is to put the source of the work in. But if you were on, say, the Times Magazine, and someone says, you know, X, Y, Z, A, B, and C, and you write that in there, but not as a direct quote, just as a paraphrase of what they've said, if it's that person's idea, then you have to reference it. All right? So that's the other time that you have to reference, is when you're paraphrasing an idea or theory, okay? So if you wrote it down in exactly their language, that would be a direct quote. If you're paraphrasing and you're saying, so-and-so says this and, you know, about such and such, then you have to also reference that, right? Because otherwise you could be accused of making it sound like it's your idea, and actually someone's got there first, yeah, and they've already had that idea. Sometimes we see that in essays. People will say something as if it's their idea, and you think, no, I think Roger said that probably, you know, 40 years ago, and so you need to paraphrase other people's ideas.
So when we're doing that, we have to put the source at the same time.
Right, so now I'm going to tell you how to do it.
Oh, okay.
Okay? So the first thing is, so when you're paraphrasing, and let me go through this first, then I'll come to how you do it. So what you're doing when you paraphrase in the work, right? So if you're putting a widely known concept into the work, you would write. So you'd write something like, Clarkson discusses, a therapeutic model for looking at relationships. That's not more, anyway, doesn't matter. Relationships or framework, okay? Right. So is that okay to just say that, Clarkson? What happens if someone's reading the essay and they don't know who Clarkson is, or they don't know what book we're talking about?
You normally put a date.
You have to reference this.
Yeah.
You have to give the reader the information about this. Okay? So the way that you do it, when it's in the text and it's a well-known person and concept, is you just put the date of the book. Okay? So that's how you do it. We've got a handout about this. Info sheet 19 is this handout that I'm looking at now, highlighted, because I highlight. Okay, so it's all in here. So you don't need to get too het up about it because it tells you exactly how to do it in here. All right? So as you're going along in your text, if you're paraphrasing, you need to put the date in of the reference. And I'm going to tell you how to do the reference at the end as you carry on. So if you're saying this was discussed by Rogers, and you put the date, whatever it is, 1967, and he said, yeah? Right, okay. So if I'm reading this, then I'm going to be able to go to my reference list, which I'm going to tell you how to do in a minute, at the end, and I can go, oh, that's really interesting. I want to see what he wrote in that book of 1967. And in the text, the date of the book is the way that you then go, the thing that you're looking for when you go to your reference list to find out what it's referring to, okay? So as you're paraphrasing as you go along, if you're talking about anybody's theories, you put the date of the book that you're referencing, the book that you've read, in the brackets. Okay? Now, if it's somebody called Joe Bloggs, who's written a book, or let's say Joe Bloggs writes a book about counselling theory, and everyone's going, oh my God, it's a really good book, and we're going, Joe Bloggs, never heard of him. Okay, so you say Bloggs says, date, says, core conditions are no good, yeah? And I'll be reading that thinking, really, does he really say that? I need to find that book, right? So then you say, 2016, because that's Bloggs' book of 2016, and I get Bloggs' book here, right? I go, oh my God, here's Bloggs' book, 2016. Now I've got to find it. Where do I find it? I can't read that whole book to see whether that's true or not, or whether you've misrepresented what the blog says, right? So if it's something that is not a well-known concept, put the page number. Okay? He said that on page 45. So you do the colon, and then you put the page number. So that's the accepted way of doing it. You put the colon and then the page number. When it's a concept that I might not have heard of. Okay? That makes sense? So when we're talking about people that we all know about, Rogers, with an S, or Clarkson, you don't need to put the page number, but when it's a concept that's not so widely known, you must put the page number so that the person reading it can go and find it. Yeah? So can you see how important it becomes that you're doing your little stickies so that you can put page numbers for things? So if you're writing about assessment, you can know that it's page 67. So you would put then assessment, colon, page 67. Yeah? Okay, so that's when you paraphrase. So that's how you paraphrase. Now, there's lots of other. You read the handout. If there's somebody who's written a book and there's more than 3 authors, you put the first named author and then you write et al, which means and everyone else. Okay. So there's a lot of slightly technical ways of doing it, all of which are in the handout. Right, all of that is in the handout. So if there's 2 authors, you give both of the names. So you'd say Carnes and Delmonico, 2003, page 132, state that, blah, 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 yeah? But if there's more than 3 or more, then you just put Delmonico et al, and then you put the date, okay? What happens if you're being very lazy, that's me, getting a judgment, isn't it? What happens if you're a bit overwhelmed and you're reading Clarkson and she's writing about working alliance, all right? So she writes all about working alliance, and she says Dryden has written about the working alliance, all right? And you think, oh, that's really important, and I want to write about that, okay? Can you put that Clarkson's read Dryden, and this is what Dryden says? Yeah? Do you see what I mean?
Mm.
So it's Clarkson that read Dryden, and it's her view of what he said. Can you put that?
If it's her view, if she's
Well, as long as you acknowledge both bits.
Well, it's him. It's what he's saying. Clarkson says, Dryden says. Right? So what you would do in that situation, you would put Dryden cited in Clarkson. Yeah? So that tells you how to do that in the handout. Because you haven't read Dryden, so you can't go, Dryden says this. Okay? Now,
That's true.
the thing that the reader of the essay might think is, do you know what, that's pretty widely available, that Dryden book. And I would expect you would prefer that you've read the original source. Because Clarkson might have been having a nightmare that day and completely said it wrong. Yeah? So if it's the only time we would expect you to see a cited in reference is if it's in something you can't really get hold of anymore. Now, we talked about Google Books before. Generally, there's an awful lot of books on Google Books. They're not always there, and not every book's there, and not every book is complete, because that's how they can get away with doing it. But you can usually find whatever it is on Google Books, so go and have a look at it. If it's articles about working alliance, you will be given them. There's nothing more frustrating as a reader of an essay to read something quoted in Clarkson, and we've given you the original paper. We expect you to have read the original paper and to be referencing the original paper, because it's a dead giveaway you haven't read it if you say what Clarkson says that they said. Does that make sense? Okay? So read the originals wherever possible. Read the originals.
When you say Google Books, do you mean Google Scholar?
Google Scholar.
Yeah.
And Google Books. No, I have Google Books as well.
Yeah, I'm an
So Google Books, I think Google Books, I think it's Google Books too. Yeah. So when you're then you come to your direct quotes, alright? So you then think, I can't write this bit any better than this person said, and it captures the essence of what I want to say. Okay? So what we want you to do when you're writing a direct quote in the text, alright, is, so say we say, Holmes describes Bowlby's work, main themes or something like that, themes, as, right, and then you've got to put a direct quote, because you couldn't say it better yourself, right. 2 quote marks is a speech mark, okay, he's not saying it out loud, so you don't need to put 2, you put 1, that's a quote mark, 1 not 2. When you come to your case study and you'll say, my client said, you're a really useless counsellor and I hate you, then you put that in quote, in direct speech marks, yeah? But here, that's a quote mark, just 1, okay? And then Bowlby's main themes as, you know, I don't know, loss, blah, 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 okay? Right, that's brilliant, and you finish that, and that needs to be in italics. It says it in here, you put it in italics, and you indent it. He goes on to say, so indenting means that it starts in there and it ends in there. It doesn't mean it starts in there and it goes all the way to the end. What we want is the direct quote to stand out from the rest of the text. Okay, so you italicize it, you indent it, and then what do you have to do?
quote it.
Can you leave it like that?
No, you've got a...
I haven't put the date here. No, because I'm going to put it here, because you have to put the date after a direct quote. Date and page number, always. Alright? So then you put 2007, colon, 63. Alright?
That would be underneath, would it?
Yeah, following it, however it sits and looks nice. Alright?
Is
So you,
that, sorry. Is that indented as well?
Yeah, that goes with the indent and the italicised bit. So you don't have to put 2007 here because you put it here. You can, if you want to put them in both places, you can, but you don't have to. All right?
And that's in italics as well. So
Yeah.
actually, on the handout, it says that you can write homes like that.
You do it that way. Okay, so you can write that. You can write it like that.
Okay.
Yeah. If you make a mistake copying the quote, that's not very good. So you have to copy it exactly, commas, full stops, exactly as it's written. Right? And I mean, we don't really give you a guideline about how many direct quotes to use, but they sometimes can interrupt the flow of an essay, so don't put too many in, because they really can interrupt the flow if you put a lot in, because you're like reading away about what you think, and then suddenly there's another quote and another quote, okay? So just enough to really capture the essence of something that you really believe in, okay? So the times that you pay attention to referencing are when you're paraphrasing in the text and when you do direct quotes. Okay? Anything that you have paraphrased in the text or wherever you have written somebody's name, these are the things that go on your reference list, okay, at the end, so that I can find the book. So you need to have Clarkson, 2003, Joe Bloggs and Holmes. Okay? All of them would need to be on your reference list. Now at Matrix we don't ask you to do a bibliography. The difference between a reference list and a bibliography is that a reference list is the list of all the references that you put in here. We want that. Bibliography is a list of all the books that you've read that help and inform your thinking to write the essay. Right, we don't need you to do that. We only need you to write down the references for what you've referenced. So you might have read another 5 books, but if you haven't named them explicitly in your essay, you don't need to put them on your reference list. Only the things that are referenced in the essay go on the list. Yeah? So, alphabetical order. What do we need to know on the reference list? The name. We won't do Clarkson first, right? We'll leave her for a minute. So let's do one I've got down on here. Or we can do Holmes on this one. Right. First, so this is our reference list here, okay? So the first thing is that you need to know the author. Okay? So the author is Holmes, right? His first name is Jeremy. I just have to make sure I get it exactly right now. Author, comma, all this bit's really important, and it's on the handout. Author, comma, initials, J, full stop. Okay? Year in brackets. Find the year by going to the front of the book. The publisher's information on the front of the book. So it's this, there's always a page. There's always a page here on the front of the book that's got all the publisher's information. And it is the year that it's telling you that the book was written. So it will say published in, okay? Let's pretend this wasn't the second edition and it was published in 1997, okay? Because this makes it different if it's the second edition. That's the date of the book. Close brackets, yeah? Title of the book, next. Okay, title of the book. In italics, so this bit's in italics, the title of the book. And then which edition? If it's the second edition, you then write second edition. If it's the first edition, you don't write it. Okay? Place of publication, that again is on this front piece here, it tells you. So this is Routledge, published by Routledge. So it's got Hove in East Sussex or New York, right? Usually we would write Hove. Or you can write New York, it's up to you. So then you write Hove. Got to check. Always go back to this and check, what do I then write? So that would be full stop after that, Hove, then colon, and then the publisher. Okay? Yep. So it's like you're just copying what it says on here. It tells you exactly how to do it. That's the first edition. If it was a second edition, so like Clarkson, comma, P, full stop, 2003, close brackets, there, rel, right, bracket, I think you put it brackets, don't you? No, full stop, second edition, right, full stop, quick, it's were, London, colon, were, yeah? So you're just following a formula, essentially. So there's lots of variants to that, and they're all on this. They're all on here. So it will tell you how to do journals. So for journals, journal referencing, it's very similar, but the thing that you put italics under is different. So you don't put the italics under the title of the article. The italics are the journal. The full title of the journal are italics. So if it was a journal, you have the author, initials, year in brackets, full title of the article, and then the title of the journal goes in italics. Then you put the volume number, issue number if there are issue number, and page numbers. Okay? We've got, in a minute, I'm going to give you an exercise, and you're going to have it after lunch. You'll probably have a go at doing that, right? So I've got an exercise for you to do now. If you're referencing from the web, similar again here, it tells you all of this on the handout, but you have to say where you got it from and when you accessed it. So you just copy in from here, copy how to do it. And also if you're using Kindle, it tells you on here how to use the Kindle as well.
Excuse me.
But as long as you've got these basics here, then they're very specific things that you might want to reference. Go to the hand, go to this and look. It's called the Harvard referencing system. So we do it this way. So some Harvard referencing, they don't do italics, they'll underline and that sort of thing. But this is how we want you to do it. So if you want to read more about it, then you're looking for the Harvard system. But the specifics about how we do it is in the info sheet. Okay? Are there any questions about that?
I think occasionally I've put like homes, and then I've put Sussex rather than Hove. Does that matter? It's got to be Hove.
It should be the town, but
yeah. Okay.
We're not going to get written across if you get it slightly wrong. It's learning to be academically correct, really. The other thing, the other reason that I didn't say about referencing is it's what they do in British universities. It's the convention in British universities. So that's partly why it's done. It's just the British convention. So you're following a convention. So what people sometimes do is this always has to be in alphabetical order. So that I can read and think, oh right, I can go to Clarkson and I know which book you're talking about. And what you'll notice in some books is like in Clarkson, so she's referencing an awful lot of her work in here. So because some of her work she's written in the same year, you'll see in the referencing sections A, B, C. So in that case, if you were to reference something that you would only put A, B, C in your reference list if you were referencing two articles from the same person in the same year, then you would use A, B, and C. If someone copies a reference out of here and they put A, B, and C, I can tell they copied a reference out of another book. Can you see? Because you'd only do that if on your reference list you had more than one reference for the same author in the same year. Yeah? Now, I've told you how to do it. It's good to learn how to do it, but there are apps that will do it for you. So there's an app called RefMe. And you just go scan it. It comes. Okay? So, and then it emails it to you. But what you need to check is that you do it in exactly the matrix style. But if you scan it, it sends an email to you. If you set it right, it'll send an email to you with all the books referenced correctly, more or less correctly. So you just have to check for the style. Now, as you're going along, it's really good practice as you're going along with all your reading, right from the start of your matrix journey or any academic journey, is that I would always have a Word document on my computer that says references, because I can tell you now that you will reference the same book a lot throughout matrix. Okay? So then all you need to do is go, Clarkson, cut and paste, cut and paste, cut and paste from a big generic reference list that you keep in alphabetical order. So as you start getting your references together, keep that list there because you will often go back and use those references again. Yeah? So it's good practice to have that Word document there with all your references, containing all your references